Picture this. You're doing everything right. You have a budget app on your phone. You contribute to your 401k. You don't buy lattes every day. You make coffee at home because you watched a video once that told you lattes were destroying your retirement. You pay your bills on time. You have a savings account. You even feel vaguely responsible when you swipe your debit card instead of your credit card because debt is bad. And yet, somehow, you're not getting ahead. Your savings account balance looks basically the same as it did 14 months ago. Your net worth, when you actually sit down and calculate it, which you avoid doing because the number is somehow both disappointing and confusing, is not moving in the direction you expected. You keep waiting for the moment when all this financial responsibility finally clicks into compound growth and starts snowballing the way every YouTube video promised it would. It hasn't clicked yet. Here's the part that nobody wants to say out loud. The problem might not be your discipline. It might not even be your spending. The problem might be that you've been given advice that is slightly wrong, not catastrophically wrong. Just wrong enough that it sends you optimizing the wrong things, cutting the wrong corners, protecting yourself from the wrong risks, while the real wealth-building levers sit untouched because nobody told you they existed. Slightly wrong advice, followed consistently over a decade, produces dramatically wrong outcomes. Today I'm going to show you exactly where the conventional financial wisdom breaks down, the specific places where what you were taught is either incomplete, outdated, or quietly working against you. Some of this is going to feel uncomfortable because you've built habits around these beliefs. Some of it is going to make you genuinely angry because the institutions that gave you this advice benefited from you following it. And some of it is going to feel like the lights just came on in a room you've been navigating in the dark. My name is Ava, and I've spent 17 years in investment banking and accounting, watching intelligent, hardworking people follow slightly wrong advice straight into their 50s, with nothing to show for it. If you're tired of doing everything right and still feeling broke, and if you want the version of this conversation that doesn't get sanitized by the people who profit from your confusion, stay with me. Hit that like button because what I'm about to share is worth more than any course anyone's trying to sell you. And subscribe because this is just the beginning. Let's get into it. The myth of the dollar amount, the wrong question. The first thing everyone gets slightly wrong is the most fundamental question in personal finance. Almost every piece of financial advice you've ever received starts with a dollar amount. Save $1,000 first, then 3 months of expenses, then 6, contribute 15% of your income, have $2 million, have $2.5 million. The advice is always anchored to a number, and your entire financial identity becomes whether or not you're hitting those numbers. Here's what's slightly wrong about that. The number is not the point. The rate is the point. Let me show you what I mean with two people I'll call Natalie and Dominic. Same age, 34, same city. Nearly identical salaries, both earning $78,000 a year. On paper, they look identical. Financially, they are living in completely different universes. Natalie has $41,000 saved. She's proud of that number. It took her years to build it, and by most benchmarks, she's slightly above average for her age. But she's saving about 4% of her income. Her savings rate hasn't changed in 3 years. And whenever she gets a raise, she finds that within 6 months, her expenses have quietly expanded to consume it. She's stable. She's responsible. She is not building wealth. Dominic has $29,000 saved. That's less than Natalie. By the raw number benchmark, he's behind, but Dominic is saving 22% of his income. His savings rate has increased every year for 4 consecutive years. Every raise he receives, he captures 75% of it before his lifestyle has a chance to absorb it. He automated his investments 8 months ago, and he doesn't make emotional decisions about money anymore. The machine just runs. 10 years from now, at identical investment returns, Dominic's position will absolutely dwarf Natalie's. The gap between $41,000 and $29,000 today becomes a gap of hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time they're both 44. And at retirement, we're talking about potentially $1 million difference in outcome between two people who started nearly identical. The number is a snapshot, the rate is a trajectory, and everyone is obsessing over snapshots, while the trajectory quietly determines their entire financial future. This is why so much financial advice leaves you feeling simultaneously informed and stuck. You know what number you're supposed to hit. You have no clear mechanism for getting there. You optimize for the destination while neglecting the vehicle. Here's the unsexy math that actually matters. Someone with $80,000 in savings and a 3% savings rate will accumulate less wealth over the next 20 years than someone with $20,000 in savings and a 20% savings rate. The math on this isn't close. It isn't ambiguous. The rate crushes the starting balance every single time when given enough runway. So the first piece of conventional wisdom that is slightly wrong: stop measuring your financial health by what you have. Start measuring it by what percentage of every dollar you earn is being captured for your future. That single mental shift, from amount to rate, changes what you optimize for, what you celebrate, and what you're paying attention to. It changes everything downstream. The emergency fund lie you were sold, the slightly wrong advice, the subtly wrong advice, the subtly broken, the 3 to 6 month emergency fund. I know, this one feels sacrilegious. The emergency fund is the sacred cow of personal finance. It's the advice everyone gives, everyone agrees with, and everyone treats as settled science. Save 3 to 6 months of expenses. Done. Protected. Here's what's slightly wrong about it. The advice isn't wrong in principle. Liquidity is oxygen. I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it. You need accessible cash as a buffer between your life and catastrophe. That part is correct. What's wrong is the specific guidance that has calcified around this principle and the way it's being applied in 2026, as if it were still 2005. Let me walk you through what a real emergency actually costs today. Meet Danielle, 31 years old, earns $72,000, monthly expenses right around $4,000. She did everything the textbook said. She saved $24,000, 6 full months of expenses, in a high-yield savings account. She felt financially responsible. She felt protected. Then she got laid off. Month 1, unemployment covers $1,800 per month. She pulls $2,200 from her emergency fund to cover the gap. Balance, $21,800. Month 2, a promising job interview requires flying to another city. $800. She doesn't get the job, still pulling from savings for monthly expenses. Balance, $18,300. Month 3, her car needs a major repair. $2,800. Between the repair and her monthly shortfall, she pulls $5,000 this month. Balance, $13,300. Month 4, she gets a job offer. Different city. Moving costs, security deposit, first month's rent, setup costs, another $6,000. Balance, $7,300. She never had a medical emergency. No dental crisis. No family emergency, just a job loss, a car repair, and the cost of starting over in a new city. 4 months. Emergency fund nearly gone. The problem isn't that Danielle made bad decisions. The problem is that the emergency fund advice was calibrated for a world where emergencies are isolated and contained. One thing goes wrong at a time, the cost is manageable, and you recover quickly. That's not 2026. In 2026, the average professional job search takes 4 to 8 months in good economic conditions, and significantly longer during industry-wide contractions, which are happening with increasing frequency in tech finance. And media, a single car repair now averages $2,000 to $3,000 on a modern vehicle. An emergency room visit with insurance can cost $3,000 to $5,000 in deductibles and copays. A plumbing emergency in a home you own? Easily $4,000 to $8,000. These aren't edge cases. These are standard American life events. And here's the piece that nobody mentions. Inflation is slowly eating your emergency fund while it just sits there doing its job. If your high-yield savings account is earning 4% and inflation is running at 5 to 6% on the categories of things that actually constitute emergencies, car repairs, healthcare, housing costs, your emergency fund is losing real purchasing power every year. You save $24,000 today. In 2 years, that $24,000 might cover what $21,500 would have covered today in actual emergencies. The slightly wrong advice says save 3 to 6 months. The accurate advice for 2026 says your baseline target should be 9 to 12 months of expenses. And if you're in a volatile industry, self-employed, own a home rather than renting, have dependents, or are the sole income earner for your household, add 3 months for each of those factors. Yes, this is a lot of money sitting in a savings account. Yes, that money could theoretically be invested, but here's the thing. Wealthy people understand that broke people discover the hard way. Going into debt to cover an emergency is catastrophically more expensive than the opportunity cost of holding extra cash. A $10,000 emergency fund shortfall that lands on a credit card at 22% interest, carried for 2 years, costs you approximately $4,800 in interest. The lost investment return on that $10,000 over 2 years at 8%, about $1,664. The math is not close. The emergency fund isn't costing you investment returns. It's preventing debt that costs you far more. Liquidity is oxygen. 3 to 6 months is a starting point, not a finish line. The 401k autopilot problem, the slightly wrong advice. The third place, conventional wisdom, breaks down the just set up your 401k and forget about it advice. Contribute to your 401k, get the employer match, pick a target date fund, set it and forget it. This advice is everywhere and it's delivered with total confidence as if it's the financial equivalent of eating vegetables and getting enough sleep. Just do it. Don't overthink it. Here's what's slightly wrong about it. The 401k is genuinely one of the most powerful wealth-building tools available to ordinary people. I'm not disputing that. Fidelity's data shows nearly 401 millionaires as of the most recent analysis. The employer match is a guaranteed 50% to 100% return before the market does anything. None of that is wrong. What's slightly wrong is the set it and forget it mentality applied to a decision that deserves far more intentionality. The question that almost nobody asks when they enroll in their 401k is this: should these contributions be traditional or Roth? And the answer to that question, made incorrectly and then forgotten for 20 years, can cost you tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Here's the quiet truth the 401k enrollment process doesn't tell you. Traditional contributions give you a tax break today. You reduce your taxable income now and pay taxes when you withdraw in retirement. The assumption embedded in this choice is that your tax rate in retirement will be lower than your tax rate today. For a significant portion of people, especially disciplined savers who spend decades building substantial balances, that assumption is wrong. If you're 28 years old, in the 22% tax bracket, and you're about to spend the next 40 years aggressively contributing to a traditional 401k, you could easily accumulate $2 million or more in tax-deferred accounts. When you hit 73 and required minimum distributions force you to withdraw money whether you need it or not, you may find yourself pushed into the 24% or 32% bracket, higher than the rate you were avoiding when you made the original contributions. You deferred taxes at 22%, and now you're paying them at 32%. You didn't save taxes, you borrowed them at a discount and paid them back at a premium. This isn't an argument against the 401k. It's an argument for understanding what you're actually choosing when you click the enrollment form. Roth contributions, paying taxes now and enjoying tax-free growth and withdrawal forever, are often mathematically superior for younger workers, high savers, and anyone whose income is likely to grow significantly over their career. The difference is enormous. Someone who contributes $500 monthly to a traditional 401k versus a Roth 401k over 35 years might have nearly identical account balances at retirement. But the traditional account balance is pre-tax. Every withdrawal gets hit with income tax. The Roth balance is yours entirely. If that account is worth $1.2 million, the traditional account holder might keep $800,000 after taxes. The Roth account holder keeps $1.2 million, same contributions, same time, same market returns. A $400,000 difference based entirely on which box you checked at enrollment. And that's before we even get to the problem of 401k plans with bad investment options. Research shows that plan fees vary from 0.4% at large employers to over 1.75% at small companies. Over 35 years, a 1% difference in fees on a $500 monthly contribution compounds into over $200,000 in lost wealth. Your 401k might be quietly charging you fees that consume a quarter of your potential retirement balance, and the set it and forget it advice guarantees you never notice. The slightly wrong advice says enroll in your 401k and get the match. The complete advice says understand whether traditional or Roth serves your specific tax situation, check your plan's expense ratios and investment options, and if your plan is genuinely bad, high fees, terrible fund selection, contribute only enough to capture the match and route additional retirement savings to an IRA with better options. Your 401k deserves 15 minutes of annual attention. It's one of the most consequential financial decisions you make, compounded year after year after year. The debt payoff hierarchy trap, unsexy math section, the fourth piece of slightly wrong advice, and this one trips up some of the most disciplined, responsible people I know, is the debt payoff hierarchy. You've heard this framework: list your debts, pay the minimums on everything, throw all your extra money at either the highest interest rate first, avalanche method, or the smallest balance first, snowball method. Get out of debt before you invest seriously. Debt is bad, freedom is good, clean the slate, and then build wealth. Here's what's slightly wrong about it. The framework is correct for high-interest debt. If you're carrying credit card balances at 22 to 28%, that is a financial emergency that takes priority over almost everything else. Paying off a 24% debt is mathematically identical to earning a guaranteed 24% return. No investment reliably produces that. Get rid of it. But the framework breaks down when people apply it uniformly, when they treat a 4.5% car loan with the same urgency as a 24% credit card, and in doing so, miss years of compound growth in their investment accounts. Let me show you the math that changes the picture. Marcus is 34 years old. He has $18,000 remaining on a car loan at 4.8% interest. He also has the ability to contribute $600 per month above his minimum debt payments. He has two choices. Option A, apply that $600 per month to the car loan and pay it off in approximately 28 months. Then redirect the full payment, his minimum plus his extra, to investments for the remaining years until retirement at 65. Option B, continue paying the car loan minimum only and invest that $600 per month immediately in diversified index funds, averaging 8% returns. The difference seems subtle. It's not. Option A gets Marcus debt-free faster, which feels psychologically significant. But the years of compound growth he delays cost him more than the interest savings generate. Running the math over 31 years to retirement, Option B produces approximately $57,000 more in retirement wealth than Option A. Not because the car loan interest is trivial, it's not, but because the compound growth on money invested in your early to mid-30s is so powerful that delaying it by 28 months creates a gap that never fully closes. The break-even point for the debt first versus invest simultaneously debate lies at roughly 6 to 7% interest. Below that threshold, mathematically, you're often better off investing while carrying the debt. Above it, especially above 10%, pay the debt aggressively. This isn't a personality preference or a mindset choice. It's arithmetic. The slightly wrong advice says, get debt-free before you invest. The complete advice says high-interest debt is an emergency. Moderate interest debt requires nuanced analysis, and low-interest debt can often be carried strategically while you build wealth in parallel. This single recalibration, understanding which debts to attack aggressively and which debts to manage strategically, can add tens of thousands of dollars to your retirement balance. But nobody tells you this because pay off all your debt before investing is simple and clean and feels morally correct, even when the math says otherwise. The more income will fix it illusion, the quietly broke section. Fifth, the belief that income is the primary lever of wealth building. This one is deeply embedded. Earn more, save more, build more wealth. It's intuitive. It's logical, it's also responsible for some of the most spectacular wealth destruction I've witnessed across 17 years. Let me introduce you to two people, both 42 years old, both living in the same metro area, different incomes, very different net worths. Priya earns $95,000 per year. She's been earning in this range for about 8 years. Her savings rate is 11%. She has $180,000 in retirement accounts, a modest emergency fund, and approximately $22,000 in various other savings. She's on track for a reasonably comfortable retirement. Brandon earns $210,000 per year. He's been in this income range for 6 years. His savings rate is 6%. He has $195,000 in retirement accounts, a $12,000 emergency fund, 2 car payments totaling $1,850 per month, a mortgage at 38% of his gross income, and approximately $34,000 in credit card debt that he manages carefully but never fully eliminates. He feels wealthy. He is quietly broke. Priya earns less than half of Brandon's income and has nearly the same retirement balance, a healthier emergency fund, and zero high-interest debt. By almost every measure of actual financial security, Priya is ahead. Brandon looks successful. Brandon is leveraged to the point of fragility. One job loss, one major medical event, one economic disruption away from a complete financial unraveling. Goldman Sachs research found that 41% of Americans earning between $300,000 and $500,000 report living paycheck to paycheck. 40% of those earning over $500,000 say the same. These are not irresponsible people. These are people who absorbed a piece of slightly wrong advice, that income drives wealth, and never questioned it. Income is not the lever. The gap between income and expenses is the lever. A wide gap at $60,000 builds more wealth than a narrow gap at $200,000 every single time, without exception. This matters because the earn more solution is seductive, precisely because it feels like it would fix everything without requiring the harder work of changing how you live. If I could just earn $30,000 more, I'd be fine. If I got that promotion, I could start investing seriously. Once I hit 6 figures, money won't be this stressful. Except that study after study shows income increases get absorbed by lifestyle inflation within 3 to 6 months. The $30,000 raise becomes a slightly nicer apartment, a car payment you finally feel you can justify, dinners out that your previous salary would have made uncomfortable, subscriptions that seem reasonable at your new income level. Within a year, you feel exactly as financially constrained as before, just at a higher number. The slightly wrong advice says earn more and your financial problems will resolve. The complete advice says build the gap first, then grow your income, because income growth without gap discipline just means more expensive financial stress. The index fund paradox nobody explains. The math core 8, 4, 3 rule 6. The index fund advice that leaves out the most important part. Invest in index funds. Diversify, low expense ratios, stay the course, don't try to beat the market. This is broadly correct advice. The evidence supporting passive index investing over active stock picking is overwhelming and consistent across decades. I'm not disputing it. What's slightly wrong is the way this advice is delivered without the psychological context that makes it actually survivable. Because here's what happens when people invest in index funds following conventional advice. They do it for 3 years, their balance grows modestly, and then there's a correction. The market drops 18%. Their $40,000 portfolio becomes $32,800. And their brain, the same brain that evolved in environments where losing resources meant dying, tells them this is a catastrophe that requires immediate action. They sell, they lock in the loss, they wait for stability to return. They buy back in after the market has already recovered. They buy at a higher price than they sold. They've now lost in both directions, down when the market fell. And by missing the recovery, this is not a failure of intelligence. It is a failure of expectation setting. Nobody told them that the index fund journey looks like this. The first 8 years feel like almost nothing is happening. You're contributing consistently, the market has good years and bad years, and your balance grows. But slowly, the gains feel underwhelming relative to your contributions. You're doing most of the work. Your money isn't pulling its weight yet. Then something shifts. Around years 9 through 12, your returns start approaching the size of your annual contributions. The snowball is picking up momentum. The graph starts curving upward more noticeably. Then years 13 through 15 deliver more growth in 3 years than the entire first 8 years combined. This is the 8-4-3 pattern of compound growth. 8 years of building the base, 4 years of acceleration, 3 years of explosion. Most people quit during the first 8 years because they can't see what's coming. They look at their $40,000 after 4 years of contributing $10,000 annually and feel like the math doesn't work. The math works. It's backloaded. You're standing at the worst possible vantage point to appreciate what's coming. The people who build genuine wealth through index fund investing aren't smarter than the people who quit. They just had someone explain to them that compound growth is the opposite of instant gratification. It feels like betrayal for years before it feels like magic. The slightly wrong advice says, invest in index funds and stay the course. The complete advice says invest in index funds. Understand that the first decade will feel like nothing is working, even when everything is working. Know that the explosive growth is coming in the back half of the journey, and build systems that protect you from your own psychology during the slow, early phase. The frugality trap, the anti-consumer succession. 7th, the frugality advice that focuses on the wrong expenses. Cut the lattes, brown bag your lunch, cancel subscriptions, stop eating out. These are the canonical pieces of personal finance advice, and they're not wrong exactly. Small recurring expenses do add up, and awareness of spending is genuinely valuable. But here's what's slightly wrong about it. Frugality advice systematically directs your attention toward expenses with marginal impact while leaving the wealth-destroying decisions completely unchallenged. The latte costs $6 a day, $1,440 a year. That's real money. Invested at 8% over 30 years, approximately $177,000. Yes, this is true. But the car payment, the second car in a household that bought based on payment rather than price, is $650 a month. That's $7,800 a year. Invested at 8% over 30 years, approximately $960,000. The house that's 36% of gross income instead of 25%. The difference is often $2,200 per month, $14,400 per year. Nobody is writing blog posts about how your housing decision is destroying your retirement. The latte gets infinite attention while the car payment and the housing cost, which together can represent $20,000 to $30,000 of annual wealth destruction, sit untouched because they're big decisions that already happened and feel fixed. The slightly wrong frugality advice optimizes the small while ignoring the catastrophic. The wealth-building hierarchy of expense decisions looks like this in order of impact. Housing costs as a percentage of income, This is the biggest lever and the most ignored. Transportation costs, specifically whether you're buying vehicles based on monthly payment or total cost. Major recurring fixed expenses, childcare, insurance, subscriptions that have compounded into packages you barely notice. Variable discretionary spending, restaurants, entertainment, the stuff the frugality advice focuses on exclusively. You could eliminate every latte and every restaurant meal from your life and still be financially stuck if you're over-allocated on housing and transportation. And you could happily drink specialty coffee every morning and retire wealthy if your housing and transportation costs are disciplined. The slightly wrong advice says cut the small stuff. The complete advice says audit the big expenses first, because that's where the real wealth destruction lives. The you'll figure it out later compounding catastrophe. The case study. The divergence. Let me show you exactly how these 7 pieces of slightly wrong advice combine to produce dramatically different outcomes for 2 people who start identically. Meet Christina and James. Both 26 years old, both start their careers earning $58,000. Both have student loan debt. Both are starting from zero with no savings and no investments. For the first 3 years, they live almost identically. At 29, they make different choices. Christina has been given slightly wrong advice, delivered with confidence by people who genuinely meant to help her. She saves to the number, she aims for 3 months of expenses in her emergency fund, hits it, and feels done. She enrolls in her 401k on autopilot, picks a target date fund, and never looks at it again. She attacks her student loans aggressively because debt is bad and delays serious investing until they're gone. When she gets raises, she upgrades her apartment from $1,000 to $1,400 per month because she's earned it and she can afford it. She focuses her frugality energy on cutting subscriptions and making coffee at home, feeling responsible for the small wins while the big expenses expand unchallenged. James receives the complete advice. He saves to the rate, not just the number. He's targeting 18% of his income in savings and investments. His emergency fund is 9 months of expenses because he's thought carefully about his risk profile. He looked at his 401k plan, found the fees were high, contributes only enough to capture the match, and routes his additional retirement savings to a Roth IRA with better options. He did the math on his student loans, 5.1% interest rate, and realized he could carry them while investing because the expected returns in his index funds exceed his loan interest. When raises come, he captures 70% of each one before his lifestyle can absorb it. His apartment hasn't changed in 4 years. Fast forward to age 45. 16 years have passed. Christina earns $92,000 now. She has $156,000 in retirement accounts. She has $18,000 in savings. She has $23,000 left on her student loans, which she's been slowly paying while also slowly building her lifestyle. Her car payment is $510 per month. Her apartment has been upgraded twice. She's not struggling exactly, but she has a vague, persistent feeling that she should be further along, and she cannot identify what she's doing wrong because she's been following the advice. James earns $87,000. Actually less than Christina, but he has $418,000 in investment accounts. He has $47,000 in accessible savings. His student loans were paid off 4 years ago. He drives a 7-year-old car he bought in cash. His housing cost has stayed disciplined throughout. He has the option to retire at 58 if he wants to. He has the option to take a lower-paying job he'd enjoy more. He has the option to help his parents if they need it, to support a sibling through a crisis, to walk away from a toxic work situation without a parachute of desperation. Same starting point, different advice, different choices. A $262,000 gap in net worth despite lower income, and a freedom gap that no amount of money can fully quantify. The difference wasn't discipline. Both people were disciplined. The difference was accuracy. Christina followed advice that was slightly wrong. James followed advice that was complete. The action algorithm, the step-by-step roadmap. So what do you actually do with this? Here's the 4-step algorithm for recalibrating your financial approach, based on everything we've covered. Step 1, audit the rate, not the number. This week, calculate your actual savings rate. Take everything you're putting into 401k contributions, IRA contributions, savings accounts, and investment accounts. Divide by your gross income. That percentage is your financial health metric, the only number that actually predicts long-term outcomes. If it's below 10%, you're in the danger zone. If it's between 10 and 15%, you're functional but not accelerating. If it's above 20%, you're building real wealth. Whatever it is, your goal is to increase it by 2 percentage points within the next 60 days. Not through willpower, through automation. Set up an automatic transfer that activates the day your paycheck clears. The money moves before you see it. Your lifestyle adjusts to what remains. Step 2. Recalibrate your emergency fund target. Your starting point is 9 months of essential expenses, not 3 and not 6. Calculate that number right now if you have a high-risk profile, self-employed, volatile industry, homeowner, dependents, sole earner. Adjust upward. Put this money in a high-yield savings account that is physically separate from your checking account at a different institution if necessary. Friction protects this account. Slight inconvenience is the feature, not the bug. Step 3. Look at your 401k with actual eyes. Log in this week. Find the expense ratios on the funds you're invested in. If any fund has an expense ratio above 0.5%, you may have better options within the same plan. Look for index funds, total market funds, S&P 500 funds with the lowest available expense ratios. If your plan has no options below 0.8%, contribute only enough to capture the full employer match and route additional retirement savings to an IRA where you control the fund selection. Then ask yourself, should my contributions be Roth or traditional? If you're under 40, earlier in your career, or expect your income to grow significantly, Roth deserves serious consideration. Step 4. Audit the big expenses, not the small ones. Go through your last 3 months of bank statements and categorize every dollar of spending. Then stack rank the categories by total annual cost. I guarantee that your top 3 or 4 categories account for 70 to 80% of your total spending. Focus your optimization energy exclusively on those categories. If housing is consuming 35% or more of your gross income, that is your financial emergency. If your combined household transportation costs exceed 15% of your gross income, that is your wealth destruction. $100 of monthly subscription cuts is not going to overcome a $2,000 monthly housing overage. The 4-step algorithm: know your rate, recalibrate your safety, audit your accounts, and fix the big things first. The choice you're making right now, the binary, the slightly wrong advice exists and persists not because the people giving it are malicious. Most of them genuinely believe it. It exists because it's simple, it's clean, it fits on a refrigerator magnet and sounds responsible at a dinner party, and doesn't require you to challenge assumptions that entire industries have built their business models around. 3 months of emergency fund is simple. 6 to 12 months based on your actual risk profile is complicated. Set up your 401k and forget about it is simple. Evaluating traditional versus Roth and checking expense ratios is complicated. Pay off all your debt before investing is simple. Understanding the interest rate threshold where debt and investing can coexist is complicated. Cut your lattes is simple. Auditing the big fixed expenses that are actually destroying your retirement is complicated and requires confronting decisions you've already made and emotionally justified. Slightly wrong advice has a massive structural advantage over complete advice. It's easier, it takes less time to explain, it doesn't require the person receiving it to think too hard, and it produces enough good outcomes. The people who save it all, the people who have any emergency fund, the people who contribute something to their 401k, to feel validated and spread further. But you're not here for the advice that produces average outcomes. Average outcomes in America means reaching 65 with $87,000 in savings. Average outcomes means working until your body stops cooperating. Average outcomes means your financial options contracting, just as your physical energy is declining. You're here because you felt the gap between following the rules and actually getting ahead. You felt the dissonance between being responsible and feeling stuck. You've suspected, somewhere in the back of your mind, that something about the standard playbook isn't quite right. You were correct. The playbook is slightly wrong, and slightly wrong repeated consistently across 2 or 3 decades produces dramatically wrong outcomes. The complete picture isn't complicated. Measure your rate, not just your number. Build a real emergency fund based on your actual risk profile. Engage with your retirement accounts instead of setting them on autopilot forever. Carry low-interest debt strategically while building wealth in parallel. Understand that compound growth is backloaded and the early years are supposed to feel slow. Fix the big expenses before worrying about the small ones. That's it. That's the correction. 7 calibrations to the slightly wrong advice you've been given. The choice you're making right now, as you finish watching this video, is whether you're going to internalize this and adjust your approach, or whether you're going to nod along and go right back to the same slightly wrong framework because it's familiar and comfortable and doesn't require anything to change. Most people will choose comfort. That's why the median retirement savings for Americans approaching retirement is $87,000. Not because most people are irresponsible or undisciplined, because most people followed advice that was slightly wrong without ever questioning it. And slightly wrong compounded for 30 years is dramatically wrong. Your future self is standing somewhere on the other side of the decisions you make in the next 6 months. In one version, they have options. In the other version, they have regrets. The choice is entirely yours, and you're making it right now whether you realize it or not. Everything you know about money is slightly wrong. Now you know what slightly right looks like. The only question is what you do with it. Subscribe for weekly scripts. Comment, what was the piece of advice you realized was slightly wrong?